Welcome to World Gone Weird, discussing what the heck is going on in the world today. Yeah, another week, another round of, well, weirdness, I guess. Definitely, it feels like we're just hopping from one crisis to the next lately, doesn't it? It's like the world has hit fast forward. Honestly, just keeping up with the headlines is a full-time job. Tell me about it. So, this week we've got, let's see, more wildfires in Southern California, on top of everything else. I mean, seriously, when is it going to stop? It's just relentless. I read something about how this new fire near Castaic Lake just exploded in size. And then there's all the damage from the earlier fires. It's staggering. Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, evacuation orders for tens of thousands of people, just like that. It's so disruptive. Makes you really think about how vulnerable we are, doesn't it? It's more than just disruptive, it's terrifying. You've got people losing their homes, their whole lives turned upside down, and it's just happening again and again. I just can't imagine the stress that they must be experiencing. This whole thing is making me focus on how important it is to practice my pre-bed stretching exercises to avoid excess muscle tension at night. Absolutely. And it's not just about the immediate physical danger, right? I was reading about this study linking chronic stress and cardiovascular health, and I can just imagine how this kind of constant threat is impacting people's bodies, you know. I'm now very intent on setting up a consistent morning meditation to calm my mind and start my day focused. And, yes, mindful breathing during my workouts, too. It feels like such a necessity these days. How do you guys cope with these types of stressors? Well, I think the financial impact is something that can't be ignored either. The article mentioned at least $28 billion in insured damage, and that's just insured. Imagine the total cost, including all the uninsured losses and the mental health fallout. It's a massive hit to the community and the whole economy. We've got to address the systematic problems that make these events so destructive. You're totally right. It's easy to get caught up in the immediate crisis, but it's the long-term ramifications that are really concerning. The article mentioned some slow response times for evacuations, and that makes me wonder if we're really prepared for these types of emergencies. How can we create more resilient systems? That's something I've been thinking about a lot, actually. How we frame these challenges in our minds directly impacts our ability to handle them, you know. Like catastrophizing, that's a big one. I'm also exploring some of the neural pathways involved during cognitive restructuring. It's really fascinating, and I think it could help me better respond to these events. It makes you wonder, how can anyone think clearly in that chaos? I've been trying a new sleep cycle optimization technique that involves exercising at a specific time before bed, and the effect on my sleep is incredible. I mean, the interconnectedness of physical and mental health is so important, especially in times like these. This really highlights the importance of having a good sleep and exercise routine, I think. You've got to keep the body functioning well to handle the cognitive load, you know. Plus, I'm sure a lot of people have their sleep patterns severely disrupted, which only exacerbates the stress. Yeah, that makes complete sense, Sarah. It's that constant feedback loop between mind and body. When you're physically depleted, it's like everything amplifies the negative feelings. I'm even trying to incorporate mindfulness into my eating habits. It's just a small life hack, but focusing on the experience of eating, not just eating quickly to move on to something else. I'm working on building small changes that all add up. And, I think you are so right, we really have to focus on our own personal well-being if we're going to be able to handle all these ongoing challenges. I feel a lot more able to cope with stress when I'm sleeping well and focusing on my breathing. It's not just the immediate physical stuff, it's the psychological trauma, too. These are real people dealing with real losses. The fires aren't just destroying homes, they are destroying memories, communities, that sense of stability that people need. It's heartbreaking. I worry about the long-term mental health impact on the folks who experienced the fires firsthand. And then there are the political ramifications. These disaster response systems get stress tested so hard, it exposes all the cracks. Absolutely. And the political fallout is like a whole other layer of complexity, right? I mean, you see the back and forth between different sides of the aisle about funding, who's responsible. All that noise, it just adds to the overall sense of unease. And that's just within our own borders. When it comes to these types of disasters, it always seems like we're learning the same lessons over and over again, and nothing seems to be fundamentally changing. I'm fascinated by how AI could help with this too, in CBT, providing real-time cognitive restructuring. If it could help me process things, it could help anyone, right? These kinds of systems need to be adaptable and easily accessible, I think. You're right, and it's overwhelming to think about it all. This news really makes me think we need to push for improvements across the board. There's so much talk about technology and AI, but it's only truly beneficial if it's also about making people healthier. It's all related, isn't it? I mean, if we can understand the nuances of the sleep cycle and the best times for exercise and integrate that with better technology, we're taking care of the mind and the body at the same time. The more I can use these life hacks, the more resilient I think I'll be when faced with a lot of stress. When they say, sound body, sound mind, it's really true. It's also interconnected, like a web. So, it's not just about the fires, or the immediate responses, it's about our overall well-being, and being able to handle the chaos. It's about strengthening that web. It's a good reminder that daily mindfulness really does make a difference to our stress reactions. If I can stay present, in the moment, and use my breathing when faced with a difficult situation, I'm more likely to react thoughtfully rather than just getting overwhelmed by emotions. It feels like a real life hack. I agree. It's like we're constantly dealing with these cascading crises, and it's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes. I was reading about Trump's recent executive orders. They were just firing them off, one after another. It makes you really question the balance of power. How much can one person really do? And the legal challenges that are always sure to follow. Everything just feels so volatile. Like it could all unravel. Yes, that's exactly the feeling. Like everything is on a knife's edge. And that feeling of uncertainty just exacerbates all the cognitive distortions we were talking about earlier. It's like our minds are constantly on high alert, searching for any sign of danger. It's why I'm exploring how to be more flexible in my thinking. If I can reframe these challenges and take small actions, I think it'll help calm the chaos inside my own head. The way we respond to information and how we choose to process it has a huge impact. And that high alert status just wreaks havoc with sleep, doesn't it? The anxiety, racing thoughts, it's a vicious cycle. Which is why, for me, focusing on the body and the mechanics of good sleep is so important. It gives me a sense of control when everything else feels so out of control. The other day I actually discovered a new sleep cycle technique. It's about timing your exercise to maximize the repair processes during sleep. I'm still testing it, but early results are promising. I think that if you're consistently in a place of anxiety and stress, there are not going to be good results, and you will continue to be on high alert. That's fascinating, Sarah. It's incredible how much of our overall well-being is tied up in those basic things we can control. I've been playing with this meditation app. It uses nature sounds to help calm my mind. It's really been helpful. The idea is not to escape the chaos, but to find stillness within it. To find a better way of reacting to the information. And to see where that information is coming from as well, not just to blindly accept everything at face value. It really does feel like that helps me to avoid a stress reaction when facing something hard. And it's so easy to fall into these rabbit holes of stress and worry, especially with all the negativity swirling around, especially online. The speed at which information and disinformation spreads is just insane. I find myself constantly questioning everything I see and read, which, honestly, is exhausting in itself. Then you start to wonder about the economic impacts of all this, and that's just another layer of anxiety. It is completely exhausting. And it's by design, isn't it? I mean, the more overwhelmed and confused people are, the easier it is to manipulate them. I think this is why understanding how our thought patterns work is so crucial. I'm trying to recognize when my thoughts are becoming distorted, when I'm catastrophizing, and consciously choose to reframe them. It's like a mental muscle you have to train, but it's definitely worth the effort, especially with all this ongoing chaos and disinformation. This constant news cycle does not help me when I'm trying to restructure my thinking. Absolutely, and you've got to have healthy coping mechanisms, and for me that's exercise and sleep, of course. The more I can dial in my sleep hygiene, the more resilient I feel in the face of stress and uncertainty. And it's not just about surviving, it's about actually thriving, even in difficult times. I'm trying a few new things to optimize my sleep, sometimes stretching and diaphragmatic breathing just before bed, and it's making a huge difference in my overall mood, energy levels, and athletic performance. You know, it's all connected. It really is. And it's funny, all these tiny things we do, like mindful breathing or gratitude exercises, they seem so small on their own, but when you start stacking them together, the compounding effect is really powerful. I've been trying this gratitude journaling thing and I know it sounds really basic, but it does shift your focus. And I do feel like it makes me more able to see what's going well, instead of just focusing on what's not. It makes sense that we should use these life hacks to actively create a more balanced experience of life. And to me, that feels especially important right now. Especially with all of the AI news, it feels that to be human is to consciously choose to grow and change each day. It's so true. The personal is the political, as they say. And I'm also starting to see how these global events are all interconnected, these wildfires, the political instability, all of it. It's like a giant, messy puzzle, and we're all trying to figure out how all the pieces fit. It's almost like our personal well-being is a piece of that larger puzzle, and the better we take care of ourselves, the better equipped we are to deal with everything happening around us. Exactly, it's about personal agency, taking responsibility for our own well-being, and understanding how our thoughts and actions contribute to the bigger picture. I'm finding that when I focus on improving my cognitive processes, my ability to see the larger picture and better assess situations becomes more clear. It all ties in together, and that's the fascinating thing about it. I mean, if we understand the connections between our thoughts and our actions, and how we choose to think, then we can be more proactive about responding to these global issues. I'm working on those cognitive processes to give myself the best possible options for action. It's about creating that positive feedback loop, you know. When you're taking care of yourself, you're better able to contribute to your community and the world around you. It's not selfish to focus on exercise, sleep, breathing, and healthy eating, it's essential. I've found that a precise sleep schedule coupled with pre-sleep stretching dramatically improves my overall well-being and mental clarity, and it makes it easier to stay calm when things get stressful. And I really believe the data will support this in the future, the interconnectedness of mind and body. Yeah, that's what I'm realizing too. These things aren't separate, they're all part of the same system. It's like we are each little ecosystems that are impacted by everything else around us. So focusing on self-care isn't selfish, it's a form of proactive resilience. And I guess, thinking about that, the more we're able to implement small positive changes, the more that makes us able to cope with these larger problems. It seems like I'm learning, slowly, to consciously cultivate positive habits rather than simply reacting to impulses. And I think that's a good thing, especially when the world seems so unpredictable. Right, and it's easy to feel so overwhelmed by the scale of everything, you know. Like, what can one person really do in the face of all this chaos? But I guess it's like, we can all start with our own little corner of the world. Trying to be more informed, more empathetic, and more mindful of our own impact on others. To be more aware of our reactions, and to not contribute to the chaos that is always lurking. Yes, exactly, that's the key. It's not about trying to fix everything at once, but to focus on what we can control, which is our own reactions, thoughts and behaviors. It's about cultivating the ability to adapt and respond in a healthy way. I think that learning these CBT techniques has helped me so much with this, being able to catch those negative thought loops and replace them with something more positive. It's like a life hack, but for my mind, and I do think it makes me more able to contribute to society in positive ways. And I like the idea of working in the smaller things to positively impact the bigger things. It's about being proactive rather than reactive, and for me it's about having that daily routine, knowing what to do to support my physical health, and by extension my mental health. It's not about becoming some kind of super athlete, it's about consistency and choosing to do what benefits me and, by extension, benefits the larger world. And it's about really listening to what our bodies need. That's what the technology is starting to help us with. It's like we can start fine-tuning ourselves a little bit at a time, and that can be really empowering. I love that, fine-tuning ourselves. It's a great way to frame it. It's not about some grandiose solution, but about these little adjustments, these tiny life hacks that help us to be better versions of ourselves. It's really like we're building inner resilience in a very unstable world. And that feels like a worthwhile project. And I'm inspired to continue my little experiments, the mindfulness, the gratitude, the mindful eating. It all seems to be working. Yeah, and I think that's all we can really do, right? Keep striving to be better, more informed, more compassionate, and more resilient. We just have to be able to keep showing up, keep doing the best we can do, despite the chaos, and to find those moments of calm within the storm. I also think that maybe we need to re-examine the way we get our information. We can't trust that everything we see online is true or unbiased. I think that having a more critical approach to the news cycle would definitely be a positive thing, and may, in fact, make the chaos feel a little bit less intense. It might be another good life hack. Absolutely, that awareness and critical thinking is so important. It's so easy to get swept up in the fear and the negativity, but the more we understand how our own minds work, and how those biases can affect our views, the more we can make better decisions. This kind of knowledge gives me a sense of hope, that we can change and improve, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. And I think, if we all choose to focus on this more, there may be some bigger changes that come about. I completely agree, it's about building that foundation, one step, one breath, one mindful movement at a time. The more we focus on the things we can control, the more powerful we become. And for me, it always comes back to exercise and sleep. If we can optimize those two things, and add some of these other life hacks in as well, we have a much better chance of staying healthy, both mentally and physically. It's not about being perfect, it's about doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have, and always continuing to learn, to grow, and to adapt. Well said, all of you. It feels like that's a good place to wrap it up for today. It's definitely a lot to process. We always seem to find new and exciting ways to discuss the ways the world is going mad, but, it's helpful to remember we aren't the only ones seeing it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, everyone. And as always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Yep, stay safe everyone. And try to find some peace. Take care, everyone. Until next time. Be well, and get some sleep.